all the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. So it's always was about developing players. It was always about helping people be more successful in life. As I said before, name, image, and likeness is a great opportunity for them to create a brand for themselves. I'm not against that at all. But to come up with some kind of a system that still can help the development of young people, I think is paramount to the future of college athletics.
Gentlemen, welcome to Straight to the Point, Straight to the Streets, the People's Collage. Today we have a very special guest. Who do we have the pleasure of sitting with here today?
Will Thomas.
Mr. Thomas, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Mr. Thomas, we always start this off with getting people to tell us who they are, right? And so a lot of times we focus on what they do, but we want to know where you started. So
Okay.
talk to us about who Will Thomas is, where he comes from, and what was life like as a young man for Will Thomas?
No doubt. So I like to say that I'm the son of a soldier and educator. Grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad was a active duty Army soldier at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My mom was an educator. She taught fourth grade for 30 years. So education has always been important to me, but I think the characteristics of discipline, integrity, are things that are really have always resonated with me, just from who my dad was. Growing up, I would say life was hard. I went to a Catholic school, but I was the only individual there that had a father that was in the military, and so strict rules, strict guidelines. But I think that's always helped me on my professional journey, which is what has gotten me to where I am today. I think when I look at my family life today, being here in the DMV, which is where we relocated to 9 years ago, married, 4 children, but I still remember the values and the lessons that both my mom and dad taught me growing up.
What did you do as a young man to kind of stay out of trouble? What did your parents kind of push your direction?
They pushed us into sports. They pushed us into, a lot of studying and reading. I grew up in an age where you just had to be back home by the time the street light came on, but don't leave the neighborhood. So, so it's one of those type things, man. And so, from organized sports to playing baseball, football, basketball growing up, my dad was my rec league coach for a little while. Making sure, I knew, right now I'm in wealth management, but I knew that I wanted to be a stockbroker, and I'll date my age a little bit with this story. But when it came to the reading piece, I knew that I wanted to be on Wall Street. I think I was in the 7th grade. My mom and dad bought us this volume of Britannica encyclopedias. And so they wanted us to read something out of them every night for about 30 minutes. And I stumbled on stockbrokering in Wall Street. And I was already pretty decent in math, and learned about trading and stocks and things of that nature. And I was like, okay, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And from then on, whether it was FBLE in high school, playing these stock brokerage games in when I went to Fayetteville State, things of that nature, and just kind of led me to it, and I always stuck with it. But I would say for us, it was both athletics and education, both for my brother and my younger sister.
All right, so you had siblings.
Yeah.
So how many siblings did you have?
I just had, I had the 2. My brother is almost exactly a year older than I am, and my sister's 4 years older than I am. 4 years younger than I am. So my brother and I always competed. We both played basketball growing up. He ventured off into the world of tennis and got really good at that. I stuck with basketball. and played a little while. But I would say that that's where the competitive edge started, was just always having someone to compete against
So you were a
in-house.
true middle child.
No doubt. Hey,
How was that experience?
you know, it was different, right? Because the dynamics, when you think of family dynamics, right? My brother was the first child, the oldest, and so he kind of got spoiled as being the first child, my dad's first son. And then my sister, you know, she's the last, she's the baby, but she's also the you know, the only girl that my mom had. And so sometimes, you know, you can feel a little bit left out. But I think my mom and dad taught us always constructive ways of being noticed. And so I would never say that I ever acted out, because a lot of the attention that I was looking to receive as a child, I was able to do that in a positive way.
So you talked about you playing basketball, right?
Yeah.
So early on, let's say high school, did you feel like that's where your future was at?
I did. You know, my dad knew that it was a goal, and he did everything within his power and within his paycheck to make it happen. We had the basketball hoop, the permanent hoop, not the little rollaway joint, but the permanent joint in the backyard. And, you know, we'd spend hours, like all weekend out there playing. And, you know, then he would send us to the 5-day away camps. And plus that part of North Carolina was just always a big basketball area. The Mid-South 4A in North Carolina was just, it had a lot of talent in it. And so I felt like with hard work, which is one of the things that my dad instilled in me, and my brother and sister, you know, anything's possible.
So talk about a little bit, so you mentioned you went to Fayetteville.
Yes, sir.
So talk to us about, you know, that high school experience playing sports. Like, were you a star? Was it overwhelming? Was it something that you kind of like were you ever conscious of like your abilities and where you could go? Or was it something that you were just playing and just having fun?
No, I wasn't playing it to have fun. I wasn't able to become a star. I got hurt my junior year playing basketball early in the season. And you know, medicine isn't as good as it wasn't as good back then as it is now, of course. And so I just had a nagging injury that just, you know, prevented me from really playing any more sports, from football, basketball, or even running track for the remainder of my my high school career. Spent a year or two at Fayetteville State before I finally decided to pick the ball back up again and walked on at Fayetteville State. But I think those years off taught me a lot, and really had me appreciate not just the love of the game, but the love to compete. And so I was able to, you know, rekindle a lot of the things that, the love for the sport more than anything. I think as, you know, which is why I relate and I try and educate a lot of these high school kids and a lot of the professional athletes that I work with, is because you never know when you can get hurt. And what is that going to look and feel like if and when it does, but if it does. Some people are lucky enough to get, you know, to play the game and get unscathed. But I think for me, it was hard for a little while. I mean, I can remember, you know, you want to play hard, you know, you want to go to the big schools, the Carolinas, the Dukes. You know, you grow up in North Carolina and you're pretty decent. You know, those are one of the places that you want to go, or NC State. And then you realize it's not going to happen. But I think that's life, right? How do you deal with it? And but I feel blessed to have found myself at my parents' alma mater, which is Fayetteville State University, and just a different level of education that I think you receive as a black man at an HBCU. I feel very fortunate to have landed at FSU and still take away a lot of the teachings and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but just a lot of the worldly outlook that I think that you can receive as a black man at an HBCU. So that in the end worked out extremely well for me.
So when you were at Fayetteville, when you realized that basketball wasn't like going to be a feature, like as far as making a living, what was the point when you kind of circled back to the finances and to the stocks?
No, I never left. I never left the finances. My major, I majored in mathematics and minored in finance. And so I think, and then I actually had an opportunity to play overseas for a little while. But I think the big dream of knowing that I'm going to make millions and millions of dollars, playing the game that I love, I realized that probably early on. And so being able to fall back on the educational piece that my parents had always instilled, that in order to be successful in this life, the cornerstone is going to be education, that never faltered, that never wavered. You just juggle both.
How long did you play overseas?
2.5 years. Started off in Naples, Italy. Made my way to Spain. Kind of a journeyman's lifestyle. Never really secured a solid roster spot. Had a couple smaller contract windows, but learned a lot living over in Europe. Not just about the game, but just about the world in general. That's another episode. And I'm being serious. I mean, I think when I talk about my time overseas, Spain, Italy, the travel, seeing the world the way that my dad saw the world. My dad moved around a lot for the military, Germany, all over the U.S. You paint the backdrop of kind of where we are now as a society, and you realize that all places aren't the same and all people aren't the same. And I think for better or for worse, I was able to experience some cool places and see some, and meet some cool people that if you don't get outside of your current environment, you don't experience.
So you played overseas 2.5 years. What was your first introduction into the financial world after that point? So did you come home and, have a job waiting for you, or was it something to where, you kind of stumbled upon an opportunity or opportunity? I don't believe in stumble.
No.
But was the right opportunity presented to you once you decided, hey, this basketball thing isn't working?
Yeah. Once again, I mean, I think you form relationships, and I had a great relationship with a friend of mine, BC, Ben Clark, who was actually, doing all right, making some money in the mortgage business. And he was like, yo, you got a financial background, this, that, and the third, swing through. And so I swung through and was enjoying life. I think I was just biding my time because I knew what I really wanted to do was either trade on Wall Street or do something in wealth management. But I did mortgages in the mortgage industry for right around 4.5, 5 years before my dad, being my dad, told me about, reminding me about what my real big dream was to be on Wall Street or, just do something significant in financial services. And so with that, I went back, got my Series 7, and from there, the rest is history.
So, Wall Street,
Yeah,
as a black man,
yeah.
how was that for you? Was it, talk to me just about your introduction into Wall Street and what that experience was like for you. Did you feel welcome? Was there anything that was like a surprise when you got there about how everything worked?
Yeah, I mean, I think we use Wall Street interchangeably. I work for a Wall Street firm, Merrill Lynch. I never really made it to New York.
Okay.
But I work for a small financial planning firm that worked with the military for a brief time before I made it to Merrill Lynch. I think I'm a strong believer that people make companies, right? And it's the people that you work for, or should I say you work with, that can make up your experience. So you can have the Merrill Lynch umbrella, several dozen offices all over the nation, and you will more than likely not have the same experience at each one. I was lucky enough to work, I think, with probably one of the best managing directors that company has out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And the level of attention that he gave to me, you can feel when people want you to be successful. Don't care where you are, don't care what your background is. That's just an innate feeling that you have when you know that you're around people that want to see you be successful. And that's what my managing director at Merrill was, first off. To the point when I outgrew the area, he was the one that was looking to place me at a bigger office where there would be more opportunities. Luckily, I've always found myself working with those type of people. And so I feel blessed in that sense, because with it being a national firm, you go to conferences, you meet co-workers out of different offices, and you realize that they're miserable in their office. And so that has nothing to do with the company or corporate policy, just the people that you work with on a day-to-day basis.
So, first things you started out saying was you were the son of a soldier and an educator.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine it's a lot of discipline in that household.
No doubt.
So talk to us about the connection between discipline and finances. Like, were you naive to how disciplined you were, before you stepped into the financial world? Or were you always conscious of like, I have, discipline that was instilled in me, and this will help me, this will translate directly into finances?
I think, great question. I think you understand and appreciate, I started to understand and appreciate the discipline that I had when things got difficult. Mm-hmm. When I started wanting to really excel in wealth management, and you have to start learning and chasing these certifications and these designations while you're married with children, taking kids to ball practice, and doing a lot of the other things that make up whatever lifestyle you have. And oh, by the way, I need to crack this book open when the kids go to bed from 10 to midnight every day for a year and a half. I think that's when you start to realize or understand and appreciate the level of discipline. I think it's very easy to be disciplined when things are going well, when things are easy. It's do individuals have the discipline to stay focused and stay on task when there are lots of distractions, when things aren't going well, so on and so forth. And everyone goes through those times in their life. I'm no different. It has not been all green grass and roses and sunshine. But to answer your question indirectly, yeah, no one wanted to be in my shoes as a kid. They understood when my dad walked into a room, it wasn't smiling. You know, more than likely when he was there, people were in trouble, you know, and he's old school with discipline as well. Corrective action, should I say.
So you mentioned your kids and your wife. Talk to us like not just them, but even your siblings and your parents. How important is family when you're talking about not just, you know, as a business person, but just as, you know, as a man and being able to accomplish the things that you've done? How often do you look back and, you know, think about the role your family plays in supporting you and being there for you? And, you know, because it does take time away from them, some of these things.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about, have you ever thought about, you know, your gratefulness or your level of appreciation towards your family, or, you know, the things that, does that ever factor in?
Yeah, I think my wife, my wife just knows that I'm a homebody. You know, I want to be at the crib on the weekends. Do I want to go to the mall? Nope. You know, y'all go ahead. But I remember, you know, my dad passed away in 2010, so it's almost been 15 years. My brother and I, you know, we speak quite often, and we always remember that my dad was always home. He was deployed when we were younger, but as we got older, and when we moved to Fayetteville, and he had kind of a regular 9-to-5 type of Army position, when he wasn't at work, he was at home. So we never, if we ever needed anything, we had to walk down the hall. And that display has been one of the things that have shaped me as a father. Never, not just a phone call away, I'm probably no more than a few steps away from my family if they need me. Sure, I travel with work. Not as much as I probably could, because I like to be accessible, you know, to my family. And I think that that's boded well for them, even if they don't need anything, just to know that I'm around.
So you mentioned that currently, well, even before we get to that, talk a little bit about the role that what do you do now as far as finances and your job? What is your title, and what are the duties of what you do?
So I'm a wealth advisor with Bernstein Private Wealth. More of a boutique firm. We've got maybe 57 offices internationally, 20 here stateside, but you know, we do a lot of business. We do about 820 billion in assets under management. We have what we like to call different audiences. We work with high net worth and ultra high net worth, and so more or less we focus on the complexities that ultra high net worth individuals have. And so with that, I lend my time to working with professional athletes and entertainers, nonprofit organizations, as well as what we would like to call our global families audience. Those could be international family offices, international businessmen, people that are going to have some type of situations when it comes to multiple tax jurisdictions. And so that makes up my day-to-day. It's going to be calling clients, calling people that I'm trying to work with, calling people that my clients work with, their CPAs, their tax attorneys, their consultants, because when you're dealing with individuals that have significant wealth, it's more than likely a team approach, and they've got a lot of things going on where their service providers all need to be able to collaborate. And so that's normally what a day or a week will look like, would be several phone calls, several meetings, but also being out in the, in the public, networking events and the like.
So you mentioned you work with athletes, and it's kind of like a full circle moment, you being a former athlete. Was that something you were passionate about, or did it just naturally happen? You mentioned being in wealth management.
No,
Well,
that
is
didn't.
that just the majority of clientele, or is that something you wanted to make sure that you got a chance to work with those guys?
So, how I came about working with professional athletes, it was the first one that I worked with was retired, and I met him when I moved to Raleigh after leaving Fayetteville. Really, I'd never thought of it before because I necessarily wasn't exposed to it when I was in Fayetteville working at Merrill. And started to attract a lot of former athletes in the Triangle area. And their stories were very, very similar, which is really what I think that was my very first time of getting mad at the business because you start to realize that the stories that are being told about athletes, and I'll be frank, young black athletes, isn't necessarily true. That they're spendthrifts, they spend their money frivolously, whether it be in clubs or on alcohol or partying or whatever. When I was at the bank with Wells Fargo, I started to realize that a lot of these young black men were taken advantage of by their advisors. And that's what led them to Wells Fargo because they wanted to deal with a company that had some type of compliance. And you start to hear the same stories from multiple individuals that these guys were just strictly taken advantage of. And so out of the 12 or 13 guys that I was working with, from 200,000 all the way up to close to $3 million had been taken from them by their advisors. That really upset me. That's what really honed my focus in to correcting that issue, which I believe is systemic. I think it still goes on today. I think if a lot of athletes did some type of forensic accounting, they'd probably stumble on something that they were unaware of.
So your role, for those that may not know, your role, what's the difference between your role and a CPA or an agent? Like what are some specific differences between your role and those roles?
So I think when you talk about a financial advisor, our job is to manage the money that they want to invest. And for example, a CPA is going to be the individual that's helping them file their taxes. They might also help them do some type of tax planning if they have a tax attorney. An agent really is supposed to be the one helping them negotiate their contract with the team. I think what tends to happen when it comes to professional athletes is lots of people don't stay in their lane. And that's something that I see play out with professional athletes that I don't see play out in other industries. And I often ask myself, why is that? I think a lot of individuals that are playing in this sports and entertainment arena, especially with young and, dare I say, black athletes, their main goal is to monetize the relationship. And I have a problem with that. I've got a really, really big problem with that. And so it's something that I'm actively looking to correct, and I'll probably upset some people, which is cool. But, you know, once again, I see it in the business world where people have set roles and they stay there. But in this sports and entertainment industry, we have all types of people wearing multiple hats and wanting to do different things, whether it's agents and being the business manager, or the CPA is also the marketing. It's so convoluted, and when you sit down and you talk to these guys and you figure out who their team is, you just kind of ask it like some of this stuff doesn't make any sense, and it's only going to get worse because now you have NIL that's popping off, and I've already had multiple conversations with families, and it's just it's probably not going to turn out well for a lot of these young kids and their families if they're not very, very intentional about the people that they're having around them.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you about that. What, if anything, has been like the drastic shift, like since the introduction of NIL? So, do you work now with a lot of college athletes, or have you worked with college athletes in the past?
I've worked. I've given advice and consulted those guys because with me and my foundation being built on education, I give away good education and good advice freely. You don't have to be a client of mine in order to sit down and say, "Will, let me have a conversation with you. This is some stuff that I'm thinking about." My door is always open, especially to these young kids and their families. And so, we've also, in a lot of the big firms, like a Bernstein, like a Goldman, they're going to have minimums in order for you to become a client. Most of these college athletes aren't going to meet those minimums to a certain extent. Still doesn't mean that I'm not going to try and work with them and make sure that they're taken care of, even though they can't be my client. I'm going to make sure that whomever they're working with, they're going to be taken care of, because that's what's really missing. People are looking only to give education when it's to their advantage. Let me educate you on some things that will make you my client. But to answer your question directly, I think the shift of service providers taking advantage of young professional athletes, especially those that don't come from money, those type of what I call sharks are going to be able to swim upstream now to young kids and their parents. And I'm already hearing stories from parents about some of the things that they're being told that is not accurate, it's misleading, and it looks like, smells like that they're actually trying to take advantage of the kid and their family. So I just think that that's going to be the situation, and it's going to be on grand scale. What I'm worried about is, will these stories be told? Because in so many instances, especially with professional athletes, the ones that are getting ripped off, they're rarely ever told. Those stories really are rarely told. What's more so told is if an athlete goes broke because the propaganda, should I say, is that they're out there and they're spendthrifts. Those stories get told on the regular. No one tells a story of the advisor taking $43 million. No one tells a story of the advisor taking $26 million. No one tells a story of the advisor taking $76 million. I'm not going to be naming names, but for those that know, they know what who those numbers are attached to. Those are actual figures of advisors to these athletes, ripping them off for those amounts of money. But they don't make national headlines. But the kid that may have bought too many cars, and for whatever reason he's in bankruptcy court now, That's the narrative.
So how do that's insane. How do these advisors? What's the process the athletes finding these advisors? Is this something where the advisors seek out the athletes, or are they recommended? How does that process happen?
Normally, the way the process works is the agents will. That's the first thing that a kid is looking for. Like now, it's marketing representation because technically, you still can't be in high school or in college and be working with an agent on the professional side, right? You got to be declaring and doing all this other stuff. So now a lot of these NIL deals, these kids are working with what they call marketing reps. And you'll actually have some of these big sports agency companies that are now setting up these marketing agencies within their firm because technically the sports agent can't go and be talking to a high school kid because he's not ready for all that yet. So the marketing piece is what's really being done now. The way that it used to work is you got a kid that's in college. He's projected to be a high draft pick or go to the league. First thing he's going to look for is an agent, right? Depending on the relationship that school might have with a sports agency, those might be the type of, those would be the guys that get in front of him. Of course, there could be other agents from outside that school's network that are able to talk to him as well. But 9 times out of 10, a lot of these agents have connections with the schools, and so they'll make the introduction. The kid will sign on with the agent, make it official, and from there, the agent has a pool of people that he might pull from, i.e. to be his financial advisor. He might know a CPA. He might know a car salesman if you want to buy a car, whatever. That to me, that system is now flawed. That is proven to be a flawed system. And the reason why that system is flawed is because the same thing that I tell all these other guys that I work with. If your agent picks your team, that's not your team. That's your agent's team. What I'm trying to teach these athletes and anyone else that's young, making money, you have to be vested in picking your own team. You have to learn how to do that. You have to invest in how to do that because here's the normal talk track, right? The normal talk track is, hey, let us handle, your primary responsibility is sport, your sport, that's what you invest your time in. Let us take care of everything else. Everything else is secondary. To all of the athletes out here, I'm looking in the camera, whether you're in high school, whether you are already a professional, whether you're in college, your primary business is your money. Your sport is secondary. If you are looking to get paid to play your sport, your money is primary. Sport is secondary. So do whatever you can to take care of your money first. That's the reason why you're playing the game. You're not playing it for free. You're playing it to establish a legacy for yourself and your family. So that's primary. Because you want the money and the legacy when the sport is gone. So that's been the talk track for the last 30 years. Hey, let us do this over here and you just focus on this over there. Absolutely not. No. These men, women, children, if there's money involved, you need to be front and center on it.
How engaged are the families of these athletes when it comes to working with them as far as the finances? Do you see a good amount of family involvement?
I don't. I think it really depends. I think if everyone probably didn't grow up like Grant Hill. Like Grand Hill's a classic example of both parents being well educated, having an understanding. Of course, his dad played in the league, and having some stewardship from an actual family member. But for a lot of the kids whose parents may not understand finances, I'm not going to throw the tag that all these kids that are going pro are coming from these broken households. That's more shenanigans. But they may come from families who don't necessarily understand finance when you're dealing with millions of dollars. And so it's hard for them to be involved. But what I do like to see, especially with what I think is happening with the NIL, because a lot of these kids aren't even adults yet. So a lot of these guys that are, getting these offers from these major universities, they need parents' consent, to sign contracts. Does it pass the smell test? If it doesn't feel right, then you probably need to hold off on making the decision. And if anyone is trying to speedball you into making a decision on the spot, your street smarts tell you that's probably not a good look. That should already tell you like something doesn't feel right, which is why, my name's been passed around a lot in some of these, on some of these 707 camps, because I'm keeping it 100 with these parents. Like, hey, look, unless it's from the university, you don't need to be signing anything right now. Like, keep it 100. Like, that's probably the only place you're going to be getting your check from in the first place is the university. But there's just a lot. There's no structure to this system right now, and so people are just coming up out of woodwork with some of these high-profile high school athletes just making empty promises, making it seem like this is the way that things get done. NIL hasn't been around long enough for there to be a precedent on how things get done.
So, since the NIL has been implemented, have you seen like an implementation of some sort of like financial education at any level, high school or college, or?
Not that's been standardized, and I often wonder, like, why that is, right? There should be some basic math that everyone understands, whether you're dealing with NIL or even with the professionals. What's the number one thing that get most of these guys, caught up at the professional level?
Girls.
It's part of it, but from a financial standpoint,
For financial.
it's taxes.
Yeah.
Like you have to understand, like, out the gate, cut that down to 60%. Like, out the gate, you get $1 million check, house, you're only dealing with $600K. You're gonna owe the government 39.6%, roughly. There's no getting around that. You don't have $1 million to spend. Anyone that's not putting that in front of you is doing you a disservice. They're getting you in trouble. There's no one out here that's legit in the financial services industry that sees a kid or their family get a large check and not tell them, hey, look, come April 15 next year, you're gonna owe about you're gonna owe 40% of that to the government. Like, so what are we doing? That's simple. That's the reason why a lot of these people, just a lot of the individuals out there that see these contracts come across on, oh, he made $25 million. How did he do this, that, and the third? First of all, he wasn't dealing with $25 million in the first place. He never had that. He had closer to 14. Big difference between 14 and 25.
So this is crazy because we watch a lot of sports.
Yeah.
And they always announce these guys' contracts. And they always use the contracts as like an explanation of why this guy should be doing this and that. But to hear explain like this, it's kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe we shouldn't be bringing this up.
No, no. I mean, and again, and with, I mean, I remember when I got my first job, and I'm asking who FICA and all these other people that are coming out my check are. Like, my mom and dad didn't explain it to me. I had, a job at Orange Julius and Mall, and get your first check, and you're like, okay, damn, I worked like 22 hours, and I was making like, you do the math, and so you think you're gonna see that round number of like, oh man, it's probably like $560, whatever, and then you get it, and you're like, oh damn, like, where'd 160 go? I'm at like 412, something like that. That's it's the same thing, just on a grander scale. But the problem is that these guys get the full check. They get the full, hey, Kentucky say they're gonna pay you $3 million. Hey, there's your $3 million. Taxes ain't come out yet. But I guarantee you, Uncle Sam know that Kentucky gave you $3 million.
So what's the best way that you think for these young guys and professional athletes to approach the tax situation? What's something that you tell them, or just outside of the realm of athletics, right? Just financial period, managing their money. How should people approach taxes when they're doing that type of work, when they're athletes or entertainers or like artists? How should they approach, paying their taxes?
I mean, I think you need to there are two things I think that a lot of these kids need out the gate, even before they get a financial advisor. I think they should get a tax attorney. They should go and find one. I would say go for the bigger firms, to be quite honest. Firms that have a compliance department, that are going to have people looking over internal resources to make sure that the employees that work at these big institutions are doing their job correctly. Because I've seen in a lot of cases where there has been mismanagement, theft, for lack of a better word, involved. There are a lot of these smaller firms that don't have compliance departments. So I would say first and foremost, get you a good tax advisor. It does no good. It doesn't do the parents, the kids, or athletes any good to think that they have $1 million when we know you only have $600K. Because everyone else in your circle doesn't know that that $400K doesn't belong to you. So they're asking you why, like, man, why can't you hit me off? This, that, and the third. Like, well, close to 40% of my check already belonged to Uncle Sam.
Have you seen situations where like players spend all the money and then tax time, like?
Yeah. I mean, I think I often wonder what the premise is of the providers that are working with these individuals to allow that to happen, right? And a lot of times you ask these guys, they'll say, well, we thought the taxes were getting paid. And they did. CPA just wasn't doing their job. Or they weren't educated. Now, you need to get educated, right? I think but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I think it's this is where I lean on. Once again, I talked to you earlier about that talk track. That talk track is, hey, you just play your sport and we're going to take care of everything over here, right? Then things don't get taken care of over here and everything gets put back on the athlete for not taking care of it. So, again, public service announcement to the athletes. Your money, your finances, what needs to be done, that's primary. And you have to make sure that you enlist people on your team that also know that it's primary for you as well. There's no more trying to stand on the sidelines and keeping your fingers crossed and hoping that these guys over here are really and truly doing the work that they say they're doing. Too many instances of that not being the case. A lot of instances where it is the case, but there are far too many examples where athletes have entrusted service members on the team to do things that weren't getting done. And so I'm a very big proponent of teaching these individuals on how to pick their team. It's one of the things that I was talking to these parents about that are on the 7-on-7 team. That's they need that education more than they need the financial literacy. I mean, we have clients of ours at Bernstein that once again know what it is that their business really is, whether it's cybersecurity, government contracting, whatever the case may be. They know that, and they leave it up to us to guide them on the financial literacy standpoint. They are able to do that because they know that they have hired a group of professionals to take care of what needs to be taken care of. We're proven, we're vetted. A lot of, some of these other organizations that are working with these athletes that get these referrals, they're not vetted, they're not proven, and they don't have a history of being so. So I just think as I go back and I talk to these parents, hey, look, if you've ever gone in for a job interview, you know what that feels like, right? They're asking for references. They're asking for work history. They're asking for criminal background. You, as the athlete, are hiring someone that might have access to several tens of millions of dollars, and you're not asking for any of that. Like, make that make sense. You're going off of someone's word. It just, to me, it makes no sense. And I've told these parents, because guess what, right? Just be some barbershop talk here. They can just kick rocks if they don't want to give you that information. Like, most of these athletes and these parents will tell you, they get phone calls every doggone day of people wanting to provide them a service. Let us be your marketing agent. Oh, let me be your CPA. Let me be your... if you can't provide me this list so that my people can take a look at it and put you under the microscope and make sure that everything is everything, then keep it moving.
Do you see that often, or is that something that...
No, that's going to be that. I'm trying to make that new... I saw a clip on Instagram, the movie with Michael Jordan and the shoe deal.
Yeah.
And his mom is on the phone, and they're like, "Well, Mrs. Jordan, that's not how we do business." She's like, "Well, we about to do some new business." That needs to be the new business for these guys. I was talking to a kid yesterday. Hey, look, you either signing contracts or you signing checks. Most people don't do both, right? Take the guy that's going to play, just got, drafted into the league, right? What's he doing? The team is giving you a contract, you signing it, and they're giving you a check. Why are these athletes doing both? Why are they signing someone else's contract, you're gonna provide me these services, and oh, by the way, I'm gonna write you the check too. No, that's not the way business should be done. You're gonna contract work for me, so I'm gonna give you this contract that tells you you're gonna provide me these services. You're gonna sign it. You're gonna keep a copy of it, and then I'm gonna write you the check. Same way that they're doing it over here. See, what I think that a lot of people, and this is kind of getting into, some things that I'm going to be speaking on, not necessarily a podcast, because I'm not trying to do anything that's going to be infinite, but 6 or 7 spot series on this type of stuff, because what athletes aren't realizing is that outside of your team, the team that you play for, you're the boss. Like when you walk into that facility, your head coach is your boss, the owner is your boss, they're writing you the check. But when you come out here and you got these people that are providing services for you, you're the boss. You're writing the checks, am I right? So you don't sign their contracts. They should you get you a corporate attorney, and any and every service that you need, you provide, your corporate attorney puts out that contract, and you find people that want to do those services. And if they do, you sign here, keep a copy, press hard, 3 copies, you keep one, and then I'm going to write you the check when the services get done. That's the way that we should be operating, as opposed to, I think a lot of these athletes had this subservient mindset, because you're always signing your name to something and putting yourself as subservient. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. These people are working for you. You're the boss. You're writing the check.
What do you think is, you mentioned earlier that they need some information more than they need financial literacy. What information were you referring to, and kind of talk about the difference between financial literacy and that?
I think so. I've been doing some of my own personal research on why athletes go broke. The percentages is high percentage. I mean, I think in the NFL, especially among African American, like 68% experience some type of financial hardship within 3 to 5 years of leaving the league. Not that high in the NBA. But one of the things I find that there are similarities and commonalities is the guys that do very, very well, it's not that they have a better sense of understanding when it comes to financial literacy. They got a better team around them. And so how can we put together guidelines that are teaching these guys how to build a good team? Because I'll say again, what doesn't make the papers. I've also used this contract, and I mean this scenario, right? Let's take a Steph Curry, for example, right? Young brother, seems to have his head on right, good family, so on and so forth. If it comes out tomorrow that he's filing bankruptcy, just you as a fan, as someone on the sidelines, if Steph Curry were to file bankruptcy, what would be the number one question on your mind?
How? How?
Not just how, but probably
what did he spend his money on?
not or for me, it's like, who is he working with?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
see, so now the service providers are going to be put on blast.
Right.
Like,
But you never see that.
You never, and that's why I say you never see that with the really, really big names. Those guys have such great teams around them, because everyone knows, hey, we wet the bed on this one. They all gonna know who we are. But
for my math majors out there, when you have that bell curve, that over to the right hand, that's, those are the exceptionally very, very rich, wealthy players that you probably know aren't ever going to run out of money. That other 80% that either fall on financial hardship for one reason or another, it's just chalked up that they were just bad with their money. No one ever takes a look and peels back the onion and says, well, damn. There's a case buried in here where the athlete is stating that the advisor took $30 million from him. Those don't make national headlines. You don't see that on SportsCenter.
You know. Do you think that there are enough Will Thomases in the financial world?
Not even close. Not even close, because again, I think the premise, and I'm not the only one that says this. You can ask many an athlete. I think across the board, a lot of individuals that are in the sports and entertainment game, the service providers, their number one goal is to monetize the relationship as best they can. And in some instances, that can be a good thing for both parties. But in a lot of instances, it's not. And I think that's where, but I think we also have to understand that the normal way of doing business isn't working for a lot of the athletes. And you can give these guys all the financial literacy in the world, which is important, but it's not going to prevent bad actors from taking from them if they don't know how to properly vet them. And I think that's where a large portion, especially now with NIL, you already see it. You've got people signing, putting all types of paperwork in front of these athletes and their families, from perpetual deals to where they're getting a portion of their marketing at the collegiate level, and if they go professional, which I think they've kind of outlawed those type of contracts now. But the fact that someone even thought to bring that up, it's like, okay, where's your head at? That you're trying to get, that you're trying to stay in this man's pocket forever. That's just, you don't see that in other parts of, in other industries. And for whatever reason, it's found its way here because I think there is a lack of education when it comes to the finances, but I think we need to be better at picking our team, because that's just the one commonality, that all of these guys that are doing well, they have a great team around them.
What do you see as like the realistic outlook on the football landscape? I want to focus specifically on that. Well, let's not focus specifically on football. Just with the NIL in place in general, what do you see like the next 5 to 10 years, like a forecast? What does that look like?
I think I definitely think graduation is going to go down. They were never really, I mean, let's, most programs, a lot of the programs are, would like to have a high graduation rate, but at the end of the day, I think most programs would love to win a national championship, you know, or have a winning program. I think that's their number one goal. But I think you see a lot with private equity now, getting in or wanting to get in. And so you'll see a lot of these programs that might be willing to carve off a piece of their program and sell to private equity, build new stadiums. I don't think that it's going to look like college anymore. I think it's probably going to be the G League of the NFL, so to speak, because again, you know, it's always been a business. For so long, it was a business where the stars weren't getting paid, which I think was, people say that NIL destroying the game, whatever. You know, I tell people to miss me with that argument. I mean, you know, we talk about capitalism here in America. How are you or your group of individuals going to be the main ones generating hundreds of millions of dollars in an organization, and you don't get a cut? That to me is not capitalism. And don't talk to me about that. Well, you know, that $50,000, you know, full ride scholarship. Miss me with that argument too. You know, I mean, I mean, I think it is what it is. I don't think that it's going to feel the same. There was still something when you turn on the TV on a Saturday and you watch college football. You know, you can feel college football doesn't look like the NFL on TV. It just doesn't look like that. And you can like, the energy is different with college football and the kids and the fans and the rivalries, and it's different, which is why it's always been my favorite sport to watch. But I think it will become more commercialized, and it won't look the same, and therefore it won't feel the same. But I mean, if that's the result of these kids getting their just due, then then so be it. Because these individuals, from name, image, and likeness, you've had everyone else, literally everyone else in the sports sphere making money, real money, except them.
Well, we ain't gonna get you to give away too much. You know what I'm saying? We ain't gonna get you away too much. But as we close out, is there anything pressing that you want to share? Anything you want to talk about in relation to yourself and what you do? Any message you want to leave with the people?
No, I think, my mission, my purpose that I've been able to articulate is for these young athletes who have dedicated, and when I say young, whether you are, a 15-year veteran, who's in their early 30s, or a 17-year-old who might have the ability to make life-changing money, although in the grand scheme of your entire life, $3.5–5 million may not be as much as you think it is. It still makes you the boss of your own environment. And I just think that the business and the industry, regardless of where these athletes turn to, have made them feel as if they're subservient when they're seeking out services. And I just want them to really uphold and maintain a boss-like mentality. And with that mentality comes responsibility. I mean, if you're going to be, you know, running things, for lack of a better word, then the behavior also needs to coincide with that. But I think it gives, and you can do that in a respectful, in a respectful manner too. You know, some well-known coaches said that they got out of the game and retired from coaching because of the NIL, you know, did this, that, and the third. That might be debatable as to how it made them act. But I think people do respond differently when they finally get what they deserve. And a lot of these kids are finally getting what they deserve, which is compensation. Probably still not in line with the overall big picture, but it is something that that they should be proud of, and it's something that should be protected all of the athletes out here, I'm looking in the camera, whether you're in high school, whether you are already a professional, whether you're in college, your primary business is your money. Your sport is secondary. If you are looking to get paid to play your sport, your money is primary. Sport is secondary. So do whatever you can to take care of your money first. That's the reason why you're playing the game. You're not playing it for free. You're playing it to establish a legacy for yourself and your family. So that's primary, because you want the money and the legacy when the sport is gone. So that's been the talk track for the last 30 years. Hey, let us do this over here and you just focus on this over there. Absolutely not. No. These men, women, children, if there's money involved, you need to be front and center on it.